Hello, this is Nick from PlanetReport.net. Lynx have been in the news over the last week in Great Britain, and this is because a lynx escaped from a small zoo in Wales, and it vanished for a few days and then it was shot dead, and it was thought, it's claimed to have killed at least 2 sheep when it was on the loose, but it was a captive lynx that was released, and apparently the area around this small zoo didn't have many deer, which is its natural prey. So they think that it went for the sheep because of that. However, there are plans in Britain to possibly reintroduce the lynx, the Eurasian lynx, and there's a trust, and they want to release it into some very rural, empty areas of our very crowded island, which has got 65 million people. But there are areas where there's fewer people and it's more forested without any big roads or anything, and that's where they were going to release them. And the farmers are generally totally opposed to the lynx being possibly released because they're worrying that it's going to increase, it's going to create a situation where they're attacking sheep, which is something that they're not used to, because the lynx was last in the wild in the British Isles in 700 AD, which is the Anglo-Saxon period, and they went extinct because of hunting, and that was like over 1,000 years ago. So the farmers do not want it to happen. And one question is, will they attack humans? Do lynx attack humans? So I thought I would look into that and make this little episode about, do lynx attack humans? Is there any cases of it? Compared to like wolves and bears, is it something that can happen? Well, I've done a bit of Googling and having a look at YouTube, and it seems not. However, it seems as though they do, but it depends what lynx you're talking about, because I couldn't find any. Well, actually I did. I found one report of a rabid lynx in Slovenia which injured somebody, and that is what I was going to say was yes, I did find quite a few different reports of a lynx attacking a human, but it was actually a bobcat, which is a lynx, but it's a North American lynx. It's actually smaller than a Eurasian lynx, but I actually found quite a few different YouTube videos, which I will link in the description, of these bobcats attacking quite viciously people just in the last few years. But one thing that did seem to come out was that most of them, not every report mentioned it, but most of the reports did seem to mention that these bobcats had rabies, which is obviously very scary for someone who's been bit with a rabid lynx, because they obviously need to get injections and everything. But that's why they were aggressive. Britain doesn't have rabies in dogs at all. I think the mainland Europe does. So possibly that's why they get sort of aggravated when they've got this rabies. So I'm going to go through what I've got written down here. So yeah, I've said about them going extinct. The Eurasian lynx can weigh up to 30 kilograms and can be 80 to 130 centimeters in length. And they've got a strong jaw with razor sharp teeth and claws. They're an ambush predator, and they'll attack deer and sheep, but in the areas that they're being put, or if they were released, they would be very forested, and there's quite a plentiful supply of deer. So in theory, they would probably just go for the deer, and then they prey on things like rabbits, and birds, and things. They've got a very high leap; they can leap into trees, like something like 8 foot high. They can leap, but they're very solitary, and they prefer to live alone, and are very reclusive. So you can go a long time and never ever see one, because they just keep to themselves pretty much. Lynx UK trusts say they can attack and kill foxes, but then they say that's because they act like nervous prey and they're regularly in the same area as a lynx. Now they say that they don't think they will attack dogs as they're too noisy and confident, like the dogs are. So a lynx would just climb up a tree to avoid them. However, later on, someone contradicts that actually. So carrying on. So yeah, the NFU, which is the National Farming Union in the UK, they opposed the release of the lynx back into the wild. And Minette Batters, who was the deputy president, she was in a report and she said lynx kill sheep and they are a danger to the public on walks around the countryside, which is possibly a bit dramatic because I don't think they're going to like pounce on you and maul you to death like a tiger or a lion would. But anyway, so yeah, I've got some clips and I've put all the links to the various different reports of lynx and bobcats in Canada and America. And the first one is there's a Canadian lynx, which is a subspecies of the Eurasian lynx. It's a similar size and it's larger than a bobcat. And there's a video of one in a place called Terence Bay in Ontario, and it's just standing outside a hair salon of like a shopping mall. So it actually came into a residential area, and it just like stares at the woman that's filming, and then just sort of walks. She's like treating it like a little pussycat, going "come here" and all this sort of stuff, and it just walks away casually, just sort of trots off. Now, a bobcat is, as I say, it is a North American lynx, and its Latin name is Lynx rufus. And in 2013, a bobcat attacked a family in a garage in Massachusetts, and it bit and scratched the man, and he possibly could have rabies, so he would have had to have an injection. And it sort of leapt onto his face and scratched his face, and I think it bit him on the top of his, like just above his eyes, and then he obviously fought with it, and then I think it got other parts of his body, and then I think it attacked another young lad outside of the garage. So that was one case in 2013. Then another video, which I'll link, is an 80-year-old lady who was attacked in her garden in New Hampshire, and the bobcat that attacked, she had a sickle, which she was doing some weeding or something, and she had that in her hand, and the bobcat jumped up and like scratched at her face, and she attacked it with this sickle, and it sort of ran off, and it tested positive for rabies. And then a bobcat attacked a woman and dog in Florida before running off again. I don't know if that one said it had rabies or not. And then this one had rabies. It was a woman was attacked in Albany, New York, and she had injuries to her head, shoulder, and thighs because it like leapt on her. Pretty horrendous, really. And then there's a clip of a report from Georgia in the USA, and it was a Siberian lynx. It wasn't a wild lynx. It was in captivity, but it attacked the keeper that was feeding it at a small zoo, and she was found bleeding heavily from the head. And then there's another, the other clip is a bobcat attacks a wild turkey hunter, and you'll have to watch that one because he's in the forest and it's just coming up to him, and he's like watching it, and then all of a sudden it just like runs at him, and the camera topples over. So I'll link to that one as well. And then there was a bobcat in Dallas, was caught on camera and leaping high over a back garden fence, and it attacked a little puppy and mauled it in the back garden. So they are found like Eurasian lynx. Going back to Eurasian lynx, they are found they're not totally rare. They're least concern on the IUCN list. Just get there. Here we go. Yeah, this. Finland is supposedly estimate of 2,200 to 2,300 individuals in a 2009 estimate. Norway, they're spread across the country apart from the southwestern counties. and they're estimated to have about 400 to about 440. Sweden has an estimated population of about 1,400 in 2006, and then 1,250 in 2011. Some of these countries also allow hunting of them in controlled hunting of these lynx. But it can only, things in Sweden, it can only take place if the population has an annual increase of 300 animals. And then I think, if I find it, I think Russia's got, I think I read 22,000 or something. It's massive. Can't find it when I'm looking at that, but they've scattered all, like the range for the Eurasian lynx goes all the way to Siberia, then right the way across to Norway, and then there's hardly any in Western Europe, like south of Scandinavia, like France and stuff. But there is some in Spain, and I think there's some in Spain. But these are all mostly reintroduced, I think. And in Switzerland, they were reintroduced in the 1970s in Switzerland. There's now thought to be a stable population of about 70 to 80 adults, and they're located in two different areas, the Alps and the Jura Mountains. And there doesn't seem to be any mention of a attack on humans there. On a Swedish website, it said there's been no reported lynx attacks. In contrast, there's been 31 attacks by brown bears in Sweden between 1977 and 2012. And then Urs Breitenmoser, who wrote the action plan for the conservation of Eurasian lynx in Europe, wrote that there has been no reported spontaneous attacks by lynx, although they will attack dogs that approach lynx kittens, even if accompanied by a human. So going back to the Lynx Trust of the UK, they say they don't attack dogs, but this expert in lynx in Europe say there is a potential for them to attack lynx kittens. There's a potential for the lynx to attack dogs if the dogs sort of come up to them, pretty much. But I mean, really, in summary, they seem very elusive. They seem very reclusive. As long as there's plenty of prey, like roe deer or whatever, then they're probably just going to eat that. And as I say, there's no rabies in the UK, so they're not going to get that. But then you could get an injured one, or you could get one that's hungry or something, and I don't know. It says if you corner them or something, they might go for you, and I don't think there's not much chance of that happening. But it's one of them things where I would never say it would never happen, because you just don't know the situation. There might be like some people playing in a forest, kids or something, and then they might encounter one, and you don't know what would happen. I mean, chances are the lynx would just probably, go away, and there'd be no problem. Or there might be a dog out off its lead, and it might come across one, and it might get attacked by one, or so there's always that potential. And I think they probably will get sheep as well, because that I'll link the report from that Urs Breitenmoser. He's got some information about sheep being attacked, and the numbers were quite high on it. I'm not going to go, because really this whole video is about do lynx attacks humans, so I won't focus too much on them attacking sheep. But yeah, I mean, the farmers who don't want them to be released into the wild are saying that they're going to attack the livestock, and it's probably good chance, especially if they come out of the forest. I think if they see the sheep, they'll definitely go over them. And I think in Norway and places like that, they do have them, and it has got the numbers, and they were higher than what I thought they would be. But do they attack humans? Well, yeah, they do, because a bobcat is a lynx, but at the same time, it's a slightly different situation to Eurasian lynx, which are probably more in sort of forested areas, and there's fewer of them probably. So, and Eurasian lynx, apart from in Slovenia, the one that had the rabies, but apart from that, Brighton Moser said that the only other attacks from a lynx were like injured ones or when they've come very close. But there's never been a spontaneous attack, so it's not like never been a report, according to him, of someone just like walking along in the countryside and then being like pounced on by a lynx that just decided to leap on it from a tree or something, which sort of goes against what I think that was a bit scaremongering there, saying there could be a danger to people walking in the countryside. The NFU lady who said that, I think the chances of that seem very, very slim if we're going to go off the Eurasian lynx that are in Europe. But I mean, Britain is a very crowded country, so that probably does increase it's like any sort of big predator. When you've got a lot of people, there's just more chance that they're going to sort of come into a town or a village or whatever, and then that can create problems. But at the same time, the areas that they are planned on being released are a lot more remote than other parts of the UK. So I hope you found this a little bit interesting, and if you did, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell for notifications, and you can also visit the website PlanetReport.net and the Twitter page, which is twitter.com/PlanetReport.net. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.